as well. Live already, so knowing our luck, we actually went live about 30 seconds ago because that's the way the technology works for us. But I'm here with the glorious, the great and powerful Tao Wong.
Hello, everybody. How are you all doing?
Doing good on this side. So thank you for joining us, first of all. Because I always like to talk to people, but, it's always an honor, sir. It's always an honor.
It's always fun to chat, but yeah, everyone's so busy.
Hey Josh, I know we've gone a lot earlier than we normally do. I mean, it's 2 o'clock here. Normally we do something like 9 o'clock my time. But Tao,
Yeah,
whereabouts are you at the moment?
I am traveling. I'm in Taipei right now, so it's 9 o'clock at night for us. Yeah,
Wow.
I didn't think you wanted to be earlier than that. It's a
Yeah,
weird thing.
it really is. It's genuinely. It's something that you know it logically. You know that it's the other side, the other time at the other side of the world. But actually knowing it and knowing it as two totally different things, I always found it really strange. So, are you there for long, or are you just there for a few days?
I'll be here for about 2 weeks, or I have been. So I'll be running off relatively soon. Actually, I've been here for a bit already, and then I'll be heading back out after that.
Yeah. But Josh, you've hit the nail on the head there. The System Apocalypse series is bloody brilliant. It's one of my first ever lit RPGs, and it will always be a book that I absolutely love. I mean, the entire series, obviously, but book one was just one of those books I picked up and I was start to finish straight through. I was like, I love this book. And
Thank you so much, both of you.
it's very true. It's because it's such a well written book, but it's also the character, unlike so many characters we come across, is flawed. He's not, this amazing guy who knows everything, who never makes mistakes, and who's just sort of perfect in the eyes of everybody. He's a normal guy who's having a crap time. It's the apocalypse, obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
Morning, Craig. it kept your
yeah.
time.
John was an interesting character to write. I don't know. A lot of my characters, I come up with. I mean, I started with an idea of what I want to do, whether it's a specific character or a specific scene, and I go from there, or a specific team or whatever. John basically wrote himself so much. He was a constant revelation of pretty much everything that he did. And yeah, he just I admit that's a large chunks of me in him because it was one of
Yeah.
my first books. So there's certainly portions of me that I see within the character for sure. I think that's true for a lot of writers too with the
I
earlier
think it
work.
is. I mean, I know that my characters have massive aspects of my personality in them, which is probably why they all start out wanting to be ranged fighters and stuff like that, and they never ever manage it. They're always up close and personal hitting people. But they always start out. I'm determined that one of the characters, I think Matt there wrote, he was going to be ranged. He was going to be really heavy into the magic and weaponry and guns and stuff. But he was going to be, I don't need to be up close and personal. I'm going to do things properly.
I with my own past experience with martial arts, I have definitely have a preference for up close and personal.
Yeah,
It's I also find that it's easier to write fight scenes that way.
so much easier.
Um, I'm working with Craig, who just popped up on there, and his characters are all ranged, right? And it's a different level of tension that you have to build, and
Yeah.
how you build it. There's a lot more understanding of where people have to be and physically where they are, um, and talk about things like cover and distance, stuff like that, to make it flow for the pacing to really work together. Whereas, when you're right up close and personal, the timing and everything feels much more
Faster and
immediate.
yeah, it's because you're essentially building your everything that's going on is within arm's reach, as
Yeah.
opposed to right at the other end of the battlefield. You're right, Josh. Yeah, he always loses hammer, but you see sort of like because
Yeah.
when you are in a fight, or when you're training, when you're sparring and stuff, your focus is never that guy all the way over there. It's this guy in front of you, and everything else just blurs out, and you've just got
Yeah, I mean that depends on what you train to some extent. Some of the latter stuff I work with, a lot of the Krav Maga stuff I've been playing with, they try to get you to expand your, that perception outside of
yeah.
that one person. But it is tricky. It is so tricky to play with that. Just yeah, Indiana Jones.
Facebook user, if you give StreamYard permission to be able to use your details, they'll be able to show you who you are. But yes, Indiana Jones is a great one. 1000
Yeah.
Lee. Looking forward to it. Yeah, me too, Josh. Me too, mate. I've got it for next week when I'm away. So
Oh, nice.
when you would to go on to it there, when you said about Krav Maga, I didn't know you'd studied Krav Maga.
That's the latest one I've been playing with.
Yeah.
I travel and I change cities and neighborhoods and a lot, and I'm very lazy. I will not travel. I will not travel an hour or 2 hours to go to a, martial arts
Dojo,
studio.
yeah.
Yeah, to practice for 2 hours and then take another hour back or whatever. It's not happening, right? So if I move to a new place, I find a new dojo or new martial arts studio to learn
Yeah.
from. And so the closest one with a good teacher now is Krav Maga. So that's what I'm playing around with a bit.
See,
That or
that's
boxing,
fascinating for me.
but I'm a little old to do boxing these days.
You're only as old as the person you feel. But
I have two herniated discs in my neck. Getting
you're
punched in the head is bad.
very bad, yes. No, just when you're saying about Krav Maga, because I've done some martial arts myself, and I've done a little bit of different things, but I've been teased. There's a dojo that's opened up recently that's Krav Maga in my area, and I keep looking at it and going, that looks really good. And I've seen some of their promotional videos, and they look absolutely wonderful and insane. And I sort of look at it and I'm going, I don't have the time, but I want to. I want to go and play.
Make time. It's
Yeah.
always fun to play, right? But I have to admit that a lot of it as well, it with any martial art, it's the teacher. It's not the
Massively.
what's the term?
Yes, Craig.
It's not the techniques or the martial art. It's the teachers. You can find a great Aikido teacher or a Tai Chi teacher who will train you well and train you. And again, I mean, everyone goes into all of these things with different needs, right? I look at mostly I want, or at least I used to want, a very practical application side of it. These days, I'm kind of more into more fun stuff. But yeah, it's really is a teacher thing. And whether or not they're good enough, they're good at teaching you. Craft itself it's a bit weird, realistically. Because it's a special forces where they started it, and it's very military based. I have certain reservations about its use as a civilian martial arts tool.
Yeah.
Partially because some of the things that they recommend, depending on the jurisdiction that you're in, could
Are
get you
illegal.
thrown into jail. You
Yes.
were a bouncer, right, Jez?
I might have. I've crossed the line a few times, yeah.
Yeah. Or yeah, you know how easy it is to, and it's just, you get.
The when I did several different arts, I found that after a while they start to blur together. So you'll use like a Tan Sao block from Wing Chun Kung Fu, for example, and then the Bujin Kan, where you lock the arm round into a full extension, but then it sort of teaches you whether you'd strike into sort of the side ribs, and then the instructor saying, or if it's a bad situation, you need to clear that person out of the fight, maybe you go up, you go into the fully extended elbow at full force. That's only if you really need to clear it, and you go, all right, and then you realize that this will shatter the arm, this will break the elbow, they will never recover that, and you go, and I will be in jail. Okay. But it's one of those where you're taught and you go, but this is a case of if they've come at me with a knife or a gun or whatever,
Yeah,
and you're going, look,
exactly.
there's three of them. I need to take this one down before, there's got a family behind me or anything like that. You're just going to do it.
Yep.
And it's the reassurance of knowing that if something happens, you can, I think, is a massive thing.
It does help. I do a lot of I did a lot of more practical self-defense stuff, which kind of focus more on the how the hell do you tell if something's going to kick off and how do you be not there
Yeah.
well
If
before
it's
it.
going
And
to
then
go, just,
de-escalation. Yeah.
yeah.
And the de-escalation, which is like, should be realistically, if you're doing actual self-defense, 80 to 90% of anyone's agenda, because the actual fighting part is like, what, 30 seconds? Maybe
If that, yeah.
yeah, maybe a minute or two if no one knows how to throw a proper punch, kind of thing.
Yeah. If there's a
And,
professional involved, it's over so fast you barely see it, and
yeah,
you're just left with the aftermath of going, what happened to these three people? Why is one of them crying? And the professional standing there going, I told you 6 times you didn't want to do this.
yeah, the de-escalation side, and whatnot, is interesting. I saw someone comment about one thing to
Yes.
know about how to writing, uh, writing fight scenes. Don't write blow to blow. Um, I People get bored. You cannot describe. Okay, let me back that off a little bit. Most important thing I think in any writing fight scenes is that you want to know for your entire series where along the scale of realism to complete and utter movie fantasy 1980s action flick with Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah.
that you want to be on, right? Or Chinese fantasy movie with everyone flying around and punching, you know, um, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
that's a wide range. You need to know where you fall because where you fall will describe how much and how down into the details and how dirty you want to be with your sensory impressions, especially. Um, the closer you're into realism, the shorter the fights will be, as we've just discussed. Um, the more I would say you want to be in people's heads. Um, when you write a fight scene, you cannot make it as pretty as you'll see in a movie. You cannot make it seem as kinetic as you'll see in a movie. What the literary word does better is it can put you in the person's head and it will put you in the person's feelings and it can put you in the person's uh, I mean point of view via sensory details that you can pick out and highlight the how it feels to get punched in the nose, as Craig said. It's it's weird.
Definitely.
You want to, what the taste of blood is like in your mouth when you get, or what it feels like to skim your knuckles against something. These things you can describe. You can talk about how your heart clenches, your stomach grips because of adrenaline, and all of these things are things the book can do, whereas a movie can't. So I would look at focusing on those things and how deep you want to go into depends on, again, the level of realism. You always want to talk about people's feelings, the thoughts in their heads, the POV to some extent. But how much of the pacing of it changes will also depend on the type of fights that you want to do it. Outside of that, I almost always Brandon Sanderson has this great YouTube discussion about writing fight scenes. It's on YouTube. It's free. Look at it. But he basically talks about setting the scene and then zooming down in. So
Mm-hmm.
when you set the scene, everyone knows where everything is beforehand. If you jump straight into the middle of a fight scene, that kind of can work, but then you have to slowly extract outwards so that people understand what's happening. Otherwise, you'll have people jumping out of the book because they're like, wait, I thought that character that you're talking about was standing next to him on the left, not 100 feet away with the sniper rifle. I don't
You need
understand
to be
this,
consistent with it. You need to draw the picture before you can before you press play. Essentially, put all the pieces in place, then press play and record what happens.
But yeah, I mean that's. Oh God, yes,
definitely, Craig.
that is.
Gods, yes.
It makes it. That's why it's fun and a lot easier, as Jez was talking about, where you've got we've got melee fighter who isn't, controlling the individual things. Katie has a whole problem with that, with her System Apocalypse Australia one, because her character's standing back, so she's got the whole raid and the whole fight scenes, and she had to control, and she has to describe all of that. So that gets tricky.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's true. Having the controller essentially character to then see everything, to be able to judge, to say, right, they're coming here, I'm going to have to move these characters around here, we're going to have to do this. I find that the hardest thing for me of all, because I like the nice, straightforward, simple. I am the melee fighter. I will just plow through until I get to the far side. I'll turn around, I'll come back the other way, and we'll just keep clearing it out. Thank you, Facebook user. I'm afraid we don't know who you are, so if you could give StreamYard permission at the top of the link. Oh, there we go, Geneva. Thank you. Because that way we can see who you are. That's all. Or if you think you don't want to give permission, just put a little dash in your name at the end of the post, and that'll really help as well. Because at least then we know you. So at the moment, obviously, we've talked about the wonderful System Apocalypse, and I am a massive fan of that. I've got all the audiobooks. I've read all the books. One of my all-time favorite series, like I say. Oh God, don't even get me started on that, Craig. I could not do that. I was happy to do the fighting. I was happy to be a character in that. I could not be a controller of that kind of shit.
Oh God,
Mike,
that'd be tough.
But so what's coming up next? Is there anything that you want to talk about that's
Well, actually, the biggest thing that we're talking about or trying to push right now is the Kickstarter that we are running for Climbing the Ranks, which is, well, I described it as the Tower of God meets solo leveling, basically.
nice?
So it's sort of a slower, it's not really an apocalypse because the towers have appeared, and we are actually like 20 years ahead after the towers have appeared. There's no apocalypse, just the world has changed because people can go, and there's multiple towers, so there's not a single tower. People go through these, they get strength, they get power, they come out, but they have to go back, keep going back in. But because they keep coming out, they're changing the world as well. I said this in Malaysia because that's where I'm from, and I figured I'd do it. And we're just doing a Kickstarter for it now. The book itself is actually being released free on Starlit Publishing itself. Thanks, Geneva. But the Kickstarter is for the paperback, basically for the paperback version, so that people can get, or we can produce a really pretty paperback version of it. We've got some nice art already created that will be included. We got some great covers and stuff like that. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Jonathan.
I think I'll have to be having myself a copy of that then as well. So are you doing signed ones? Are you doing...
They will all be signed, the ones that are going out through Kickstarter. The plan, if we get enough, we're going to try to do an actual print run. Otherwise, we'll just do it through, we'll either do a small print run through someone like Book Vault, I think that's the term, or mix them, where you can do a couple of hundred of them, and then I'll sign them. So there'll be better quality, or we're hoping we get enough that we can do better quality than Ingram, because Ingram Spark and Amazon quality is...
Yeah, you've got sort of Amazon, you've got Ingram Spark is slightly better. There's a noticeable difference, but you're paying half again the price for it. And it's a case of because they're printed to order, essentially, they're so expensive for what they are. It's a killer.
I know. I mean, the last time round with the Nameless Restaurant Kickstarter, we had about 100 plus So we were close enough. We were getting really close to actually being able to do a
Definitely.
proper print run. So I'm hopefully we'll be able to get a full one done with these bigger corporations. With regard to additional goals, we will. The plan is to be announcing an additional goal each time we uh, pass our current stretch goals. So once we fund for the current one, which is getting pretty interior design, we will. But some of the things that we have got planned is more art. Potentially maps and those beautiful gilt etching, the gold covers
Oh yeah,
on the
that's
sides,
yeah.
and yeah,
Right, I'm definitely gonna have me one of these. Let's have a look. Where are we? Have we got a copy of the link anywhere? Let's see. So we've got the link at the bottom there. Jania, could you pop it? Thank you. There we go. Sorry, I'm just literally getting it up in front of me now. That is looking very, very good. 20 days left to go on that one, people. So I think
yeah.
we definitely need to go for it. I'll be having me some of that.
Thanks a lot, Jez.
No, one of the things that I love most about this side of things is the beautiful books, but it's also that they have a personal connection which you don't get any other way. It's the digital side of things is lovely, and I do read on my Kindle 90%
All
of
the
the time,
time.
but these are all signed behind me. I love my signed books because it's a personal connection. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I
No, I do like having the signed copies. I just have to limit myself because I just don't have
yeah,
space. And
I know exactly what you mean.
God,
Yep.
uh, but
Well,
yeah, I had a lot of fun with. Well, Mike, for we actually don't do. Oh, so it's a weird thing. We don't really do beta readings per se. Um, what we do is our Patreons. The Patreons get to see a lot of the first draft works,
mhm.
but they're not really beta readers. They're more like alpha readers because they get pretty raw stuff from me. I'm a relatively clean writer, but there are
Yeah,
some times when things just go off. Like my most recent one, ATL 10, was like 20,000 words short. I finished it at about 95,000. I was like, I'm done with this book, but this just doesn't feel right. It took me about a
yeah,
week uh, figuring it out, and then I started writing, and I've got like another 20,000 words that the Patreons haven't seen yet. They'll get to see it later once it gets
yeah.
edited and everything, but sometimes these things happen. We do have an ARC reader program, which is basically a street team that we are starting to set up, which is, I think, somewhere on our Starlit Publishing website so that you can sign up for. But it's not really a beta reading program. We I just don't do beta readers. I tried them when I was young, uh,
Yeah.
when I was early on in my career, and
Didn't work out.
it didn't work out. I've gotten, what's the term? Objectionable.
Mhm.
I, I, I have very specific views upon criticisms, critiques, editing, and beta reading to some extent, which I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's what it works for me.
Yeah. Everybody works differently. I had this conversation with somebody literally just last night, and we were talking about editing, about the editing process. And I was saying that your developmental editor is a professional. They are, all they do is developmental edits, and that's great. And they look at it and they read through your story, and they give you the manuscript back, and they say that Bob in chapter 3 brings nothing to the story. Get rid of Bob. It's just filler. It doesn't matter. And you've got the to make the decision as the author: do I get rid of Bob, or am I keeping Bob? Because the developmental editors are professional and they're saying, oh, well, this character adds nothing, get rid of them. But you've put that character in there for a reason, and you might not know yourself what the reason is for, 2 more books, and then you want to reference Bob, or So you decide, even though they are professionals, it is your book, it is your story, and nobody knows what's going to happen except for you. So you're going, I'll decide, I'll put this character in for a reason. They're damn well staying.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of that as well. Yes, I
Dun
very
dun
much agree.
dun.
I- It's weird. I mean, developmental editing really came from ThreadPub, right? And ThreadPub built developmental editors in a very specific format. You started out by reading slush piles, then you moved to copy editing, and copy editing. Then, sorry, slush piles, proofing, copy editing, line editing, and finally, after like 10, 20 years in that business, you became a dev editor. That, acquisitions, dev, that took a long time. And by that point, people had read thousands of books, quite literally, quite probably, and they learned how to do it.
Yeah.
They had people who taught them, they had people who showed them what it is. They understood story on a very deeply intrinsic level. And if you work with some of those editors, and I do actually, I hire them about once a year. I'll hunt down an old school trad pub editor or a good trad dev editor and send them my manuscript. And they'll tear me apart, and then I'll learn a whole bunch of things. But they've got an eye for things, which you can find that some people who put their shillings up as dev editors, they're just not.
Yeah.
They don't have that skill set, and that's because they've only had 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tricky. If you've
Very
not.
much so.
So I get passionate about stuff like that because I can see how people have put up the shillings. You go into critique groups, and it's the same thing. People who have no clue about writing, or who have done a lot of writing, because they're all, a lot of them are beginner authors. They're all offering critiques to one another. Where is that institutional knowledge to come from? I mean, there's some
And
stuff
then,
there.
yeah, and what they're picking, they're saying, well, I really like it like this. I think you should do it like this. But what you've got is if you've got this story yourself, and if 10 people are giving feedback and you're listening to all 10 people, the story that you end up with is nothing like the story that you started with because you've changed it to fit 10 people's decisions and recommendations. And what you end up with is a generalized story. It's going to sound wrong, but if you think that some relationships, you start out and they really like you, and then they try and change you over the years. Stop putting this here, stop doing that this way around. And by the end of the relationship, you're not the person that they fell in love with anymore because you've changed so much. And that's what you're doing is you've got this story that is your story. And if you keep changing it for everybody else, it's not going to be your story anymore. And what could have been a wonderful thing is going to be this bland, boring persona. Don't do it. Just pick your story. Or if you're going to listen to advice from a lot of other people, keep a copy of your story first of all to one side. And then when you have done your editing and stuff and you think, oh, I really like the way the story's gone now, read your old one and read the new one and see what the differences is. Because I'll guarantee there's some stuff in the old one that you go, actually, I quite like that. I'd like to put that in here.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. For me, yeah, it's, I don't really, some of the biggest things that I've got comments from that I accepted on an early basis, I look at it now and I'm like, oh shit, I really shouldn't have done that.
Mm.
Adventures Abroad, someone told me not to do hit hopping in it. And I was looking at when, okay, I don't do a lot of it. So I took it out for the first book. But later on, like second or third book, I was more confident in my own writing. I just put that back in, and just, it happened naturally because that's the way that I was writing those books. And no one ever commented. In fact, some people will I actually got some reviews. People like they loved how, you could see the glimpses of how other people were. And I was like, huh. Then I looked into it more, found out that, hip hopping isn't as bad as people are thinking. David Weber,
Mhm.
does it all the time, and you don't
Literally.
even realize he's done it. I was reading through one of his books, and I was like half a chapter through, and I was like, wait, am I in a third point of view now? Went backwards, read through it, and was like, yep, he switched POVs like 3 times in this same chapter. I
Wow.
never noticed it. It was so smooth. And I was just sitting there going, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, the, the guy sold more books than I will ever sell, probably.
He's done pretty damn well.
The rules just only matter if you aren't very good at it.
Yeah, literally. That's a really honest way to say it, because when it comes down to it, if you can break the rules and get away with it, then yeah, definitely. Look, I'm trying to think of one of David Weber's books. Have a look, David Weber. I'm
He's
just gonna have a
Honor
quick.
Harrington, or the Honor Harrington ones.
It's not. I remember the Honor Harrington ones. It's not. It's Safe Hold. That was it. Did
Oh
you
yeah,
ever read Safe Hold?
I read a few of them. I didn't finish that series.
It was. I mean, we're certainly not going to say bad things about him. It's a really good series, and I got about halfway through, but the audio all came out within a very, very short period of time, and there was a different narrator for every single book or every 2 books, and none of
Oh,
them coordinated. So, this guy had a Welsh accent here, he had an American accent here, they pronounced all the things, like the locations, they pronounced names totally different. And I listened to a few of them, and I was just like, nah, I can't do it. And I ended up reading the rest of the series up till the last couple I didn't get to. Just didn't
yeah.
get around to it, the way the life is. But the audio I just couldn't do.
Yeah, no, I get that. But I don't do a lot of audio myself. I only can do audio if I'm driving, and I don't drive very much.
Well, that would
So
slow you down. Yeah.
doesn't
For,
happen anymore. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't drive a lot. And I only really listen to audio when I'm driving long distance. So I finished up an audiobook for the city that we became from N.K. Jemisin
Mm.
on a recent drive, which was great. I mean, that's an amazing book, amazing writer.
Yeah.
But then and then I was trying to find another audiobook to listen to, and everything else that I had downloaded wasn't very good. Like,
Compared to it, that's the thing, when you have a book, when you listen to a book and you're like, that was wonderful, and you come to the end of it and you're like, I don't know what else I want to listen to, because it's not that series. You want that series to continue, or the book?
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just the narrators weren't as good. Frankly speaking, none of the other narrators were as good. I mean, the only one that I would say that was as good that I had downloaded. I only have a couple because again I don't listen to a
Yeah.
lot. Was Andrea's work with The Wandering Inn, but I'm not allowed to listen to that because my son listens to that. So
So yeah, it'll change the positioning of it. Yeah, you can't do that. Who is it that David Weber wrote with?
Ringo,
Ringo, Ringo Starr. I was going to say it wasn't Ringo Starr.
John Ringo
John
wrote
Ringo.
a series with him, and then he also did a Steve White was another one,
I
wasn't he?
haven't read Steve White, but March to the Sea, David Weber. Have you read After March to the Sea? That is a
I
brilliant.
read that series. I'm
Yeah.
so annoyed that they never did.
They never
That
continued.
last book was a bit of a rush.
Yeah.
You could tell that they
Yes.
were rushing it and they just wanted it done. But
They've said a
yeah,
few times that they're gonna continue the series, and apparently I can't remember which one. Either John or David has written their side of it, and the other one hasn't yet, and it's just sort of like, oh, I'll get around to it later. And now that a bit more experience under my belt, and from this side of it, I'm like, yeah, I can totally understand that. But it's like, as a fan, I want that damn story. Really enjoyed
it
those
was a
books.
really good story. I think they rushed that last book because they were like, yeah, we don't know if we'll ever get to the last one, so let's wrap up this section.
Yeah.
Um,
Give it sort of we'll draw a line under it because this could be the end, but we'll leave
check
it
out the
open
Steve
enough.
White ones.
Steve White.
The ones that he did with David Weber, those are really good. They're all a finished series, and pretty sure it's Steve White, but they're really good.
Steve White,
Um,
David Weber. In Death Ground,
yes,
Crusade, Insurrection, Starfire series.
yeah, so good. Josh, okay. Be flexible. I think that's the biggest thing. Um,
Definitely.
sorry,
Are you all right there, sir?
bit of a cold, which is why my voice is a bit off. Um, every co-author I've worked with, and I've worked with quite a few, some of them whose work has not come out yet, um, has a different writing process. So you need to be, especially if you're the more experienced author involved in there, you need to be more flexible than they are because they're inexperienced. They need time to figure out how and what works for them in terms of their writing process. You have to be flexible to work within what they're doing, and work with, to change your own processes to work with them. That's what I've found. I think the biggest thing. Everything from we've have pantsers, who just, we just pants our entire way through the book, with kind of small bit of knowledge about where we're going. Um, yeah, I've had plotters work with me, whereas I'm the pantser, and then I drive the poor plotter insane, because I'll go completely off where we talked about, and
Yeah.
then they'll be like shit, and then they have to replot everything. So that's more my fault. It works out to be a better book, mind you.
It does. I think that pantsing just works so much better. Do you ever find I've done like the Arise 3? I wrote 48,000 words in a week 2 weeks ago. Just when those weeks just hit and you just go at it and it all just blurs. And then you're doing your editing pass and you're reading it and you're going, I've never seen this before in my life. I don't know anything about this scene. You're reading it and you're just like, where'd this come from?
I don't actually get those scenes. I don't. I don't get into those where I don't remember what I do forget what's happened in previous books at after a
Oh,
certain
yeah.
point, because 11
So much
books in and you're like, oh god, what happened? I have I'm 20, 30 books past and I can't remember what's happened in book 2. Shit.
Definitely. I know that so well. Yes. It's one of those things because you'll go, people ask you questions. Well, for me, when I'm saying that I literally forget about scenes when I've written it because it's like pours out the brain and through the fingers. And people will ask me questions about it later on. Oh, when you said this and you did this, what did you mean? I'm like, yes, yes. Oh, you must have meant. I definitely did. I have no idea. But yeah, I find writing to be incredibly cathartic. It's really enjoyable and really relaxing almost. But also, when you have those heavy days, the next day you finish and you walk downstairs, and my wife will ask me things like, "Did you have a good day?" And I'm like, "Brain no worky, word no good now."
I find it's a bit of a hangover. Yeah.
Yeah,
The days when I've written more than normal, it's just wiped out really. Um,
definitely.
and I then the next day trying to plug in more words, it's just a drag.
Yeah, you get a really good word count, and then you get a really low word count, and you
Yep.
just sort of like, yeah, I've slogged at it all day, and you haven't. It's not been a case of you've gone, I'm just going to write for half an hour. Nah, don't. You've been at it for the same amount of time that you normally do, and you're looking at it, you're going, I worked hard. Why aren't there more words?
Yeah. Well, I know I've not worked hard because on those days I'm
I've
just
hardly
like
worked.
I'll out tab over to all my social
Yeah,
media and all the other stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I know what my brain is doing. I could force it, but then when you try to force it, the words don't come anyway. At least
yeah.
for me, I'm just like, duh, 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 duh.
I, I always find that when it's when you're having those scenes or those days or those weeks and months even where you're writing and it doesn't feel quite right, and you're slogging away and you just keep going and you keep plodding at it. All right, I do. I know some people just say, right, I'm not going to do it for a week or two, and then refresh it that way. I keep plodding away, and then something will happen, or I'll think of something, and suddenly, like, you take, like, if you think two cogwheels working together, and you take it and you turn it a slight turn to the left or the right, and suddenly it fits, and the whole thing just smooths, and you're like, there you go again.
I find when I'm hitting that, for the most part, I switch over to a new series, right? I put that other series to bed or whatever for a little bit.
Yeah.
I work on a new series, and it doesn't take me very long, like 2 to 3 days. Working on this other series. I might put a couple of 100 words into the other series just to keep it going in my brain, but I'll just write it on the other series, and then eventually the main series that I'm trying to work on clicks, and I'm like, all right, I'm
Back to
back.
that one now.
Yep.
I've not tried that. For me, I like to work. I go at things 100. Like, I have to focus, because otherwise, if I get too scatterbrained or too squirrel brained, as you called it once in Dragon Con, you referred to it as squirrel brain, and I love that, because that was me. It was like, oh, shiny, I'm off there. So if I allow myself to do that, I'll just be like, ooh, I'll have all
Yeah.
these unfinished manuscripts everywhere.
No. Oh. I literally have like 5 manuscripts open right now
Oh God.
on my laptop. None of them finished, and those are just the 5 that I have open. I've got like another 2 more that I need, that I've kind of done work on, and it's just because my brain can't right now decide. I'm in between. I've just finished ATL10. I
Yeah.
need to do a draft edit on it, and once that's done, I need to finish the copy edits on it. I'm not going to switch over to ATL11 until I'm done that. So I'm just kind of in between, and I kind of want to work on a new series, sort of, but I'm not really ready to really delve into anything. So I'm just kind of doing a little bits on each of these, and we'll see which one kind of clicks, and then I'll go into that.
It's really. Do you find when you're writing the story as well, because your character is telling you the story? As a pantser, for me, it's a case of I'm following this character and I'm writing the incident report, and you're going, I wanted him to go this way, and he's not, because he's just bumped into somebody and he's going off in that direction now, and you're like, fuck's sake.
I'm what I call a pantser. In between a plotter and a pantser, I have generally a start. I have an end. All my series generally have an end in mind. With 1,000 Lee, for example, I actually have the ending. And System Apocalypse, actually, I wrote the endings by about book 2 or book 3, because I was worried I might never finish the series. So I wrote the endings. The endings are
Right.
written. Now, I might never use those endings. I actually never used the ending that I wrote for System Apocalypse, because, by the time, but here's the Panzer part. By the time you get to there, the actual scene itself is going to change. New characters come in, people change, and so on and so forth. But I do know what the ending is. Book 12, System Apocalypse, that ending, 100% from basically book 1. That was always going to happen. Same with 1,000 Lee. I know exactly what the ending is going to be, or how it's going to get there. That's going to change. I know for that, but I know what that's going to be. So that's, for me, is the way it goes, really. And then it's both on a series level as well as a book level. I found that when I don't know what the ending of the book is going to be, the books aren't very good. And frankly speaking, I end up rewriting that book way too many times.
Yeah. I have a general idea of what's going and what I'm going to cover in the book, but how I'm going to cover it, I never have a clue. I just know that I'm going to go from A to B, and that at B there will be this.
Yeah.
And by the time I get to B, what is actually at B is totally different. Has changed. It's a different species. It's everything else is gone, but I've made it to B, so I'm like, it's 50%. I've
That's pretty close to the way it works for me too, really.
Yeah.
But I do need that end goal. Without that, it's really tough to write a book. The only series that I have that I'm not too worried about having an ending for it is the Hidden Wishes series. Sorry, the Hidden Dishes series, which is the cooking one, because that entire series is just me writing about food. That's all it is.
Yeah,
It's an excuse for me to write about food and to write recipes. That's it.
sounds pretty
If you're
good.
looking for a plot,
There's no plot. It's just good food.
yep.
I haven't even tried that one actually. I haven't. I've been so busy. I mean, I don't read even half the books I want to read, but I'm gonna have to try that one just because it sounds so mad and so like. How does that work?
It's one night. It's basic. It's a novella, right? It's 24,000 words, so it's not like it's a giant thing.
Yeah, it's just a couple
That's it's
hours.
one night.
Well, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to do that one as well. I mean, I am terrible because I've also looked at the bottom of your Kickstarter. I see there's two particularly tempting offerings there. The entire Tao Wong collection in paperback. Just yes,
I did.
yeah,
Yep.
42 books.
It is.
42 books, all signed. There's two
That's a
reasons that I'm
lot.
tempted by that one. Partially because I just want the image of Tao having to write 42 times. Because I know when I sign books or something else, if you write, I like to write something like, "Hey, I hope you enjoy the book," or "I hope this is the such and such joins the story in this point." And by the time you've done 10, your arm's killed. By the time you've done 20 or 30, you're like, "Fucking hell, I don't know what I'm going to write in this one." So just the thought of you having to write 42 of those.
When we did the Nameless Kickstarter, I very specifically mentioned these are not going to be personalized. They're just going to be a
Yeah.
signature, because I knew we were going to have a lot, and we had over 100 of those, and I was just like, oh, just off the Nameless dishes,
Yeah.
the dishes ones. I'm just like, personalizing 100 of those, my poor hand.
Definitely, that's not something you can do in a day. That's at least a week's worth. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm looking at that now.
But someone
Tempted.
had a question about the issue about adding the audiobook to it. I think there's some weirdness with the way that the Kickstarter had it, so that you actually have to order the paperback and then add the audiobook as the addition. It doesn't allow you to do it the other way for some reason.
Hmm.
I hate Kickstarter. I mean, I love Kickstarter, but sometimes the back end is weird.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so tempted. I'm not, because my wife will kill me if I go downstairs at the end of this one and go, "Oh, by the way, Tom, I spent $1,000 on some books." She will literally. You'll be able to hear the shouting from
The
wherever
shouting.
you are in the world and the
I
murder.
very much get that. I
But
don't think it's.
I'm still tempted. So tempted.
Um,
I wonder if it counts as a business expense.
technically, yes, but no.
Then it's a taxman buying me these books, which I think is a very generous thing for the taxman to do. maybe not.
Another reason why I write the Hidden Dishes series is so that I can expense on my food, and then I can tell them. And when they ask me why, I'm like, research. See, I have a series.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to write a series about drinking in Crete. Just partying around the Greek islands again. Yeah, because it's research, definitely.
Exactly. That's what travel is for. When you travel to a new place, I write short stories, often set in those places, because, hey, then I can write it off.
I highly approve. I've got to admit, I was writing. I added in some details about the Colossi of Memnoch, I think it is, around sort of the city of Karnak, and you just say, I really want to go there. I've been. Have you seen the pyramids? Have you been to the pyramids? Oh, it
No.
is magnificent. It's one of those things that you see and that stays with you. It is just huge, and it's not necessarily like, wow, that's something big. It's just the entire edifice is just amazing. It's mind blowing. But the thing that always freaks me out with the pyramids and the entire sort of pyramid complex at Giza is that from one angle, when you see all the photos, they're looking out in the desert, and you see the pyramids are massive, and the desert just vanishes in the distance. And if you turn to the side, instead you've got this, all of the city is literally butting up against it, and you've got all of these like really grotty shops, like really messed up, like little cheap and all hell shops. And where the coaches stop for you to get off and to go into the complex, there's all these like tat shops, we call them in the UK, where it's they're selling like I love the pyramids hats and
Yep.
things like that are absolute crap. And yet you've got these tiny little shops, and you think anywhere else in the world that people would go, no, I'm bulldozing this lot, and I'm putting a Hilton hotel or something here, and I'm going to make this grand plaza. And in Egypt, they're just like, no, we've got a tat shop. That's what you've got, and it's just weird, and yet it's wonderful. And you see the pyramids, and you're just like, wow, I've got to go and see it all again.
Yeah, something for me to look at for sure at some point. Too many places to travel to. Not enough time.
Exactly.
I should
The
probably just
world.
stop writing, and
Whoa. No. Let's not be silly here. That's just crazy talk. I mean, you are going to be at Dragon Con this year, aren't you?
I will be.
Good. Because I am looking forward to that. We talk about Dragon Con in pretty much all the lives here because it's the opportunity for us all to get together, and we are by nature, because we spend so much time writing, we are quite solitary individuals in some respects, because we literally sit in an office, on the plane, in the car, whatever it is, and we write, and we are in our own heads for so many hours of the day. So when we get to be together and get to meet everybody again and have drinks and just catch up, I find it's wonderful. For me, growing up, I did a lot of years where I went out to sort of the Greek islands, and I partied and I drank excessively and worked, and travelled around. And that section of my life is over. I'm quite happy that way. I'm in my 40s now. I've got my wonderful wife. I've got my beautiful kids. Life is really good. But then getting together with all of these people and suddenly being like, we're all together and this is great, and with all of your friends, it's wonderful to have that much of it back. Is madness.
Yeah. No, it's really nice. I do enjoy going to places like Dragon Con and the other writing conventions just to meet other people.
Yeah.
It's, as you said, it's a lonely profession in some ways, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Because literally, if you think in any other job, normally you've got so many people you talk to every day that, yeah, it's interesting though. It is it's a wonderful job. It really is. I genuinely do enjoy it. So the Kickstarter is looking brilliant. Do you have a plan for another one after this? Are you gonna
We have a couple of plans for other Kickstarters
mm-hmm.
because it's something that we're moving heavily into. Sorry. Or a new System of Apocalypse series. So we're probably going to do one starting out from book one and try to see what happens when we do it that way. So the author has kindly accepted being a guinea pig, because I can't really do it with someone like Craig's, where you drop a book 3 because I've got book 1 and 2 in KU, and that's a little too much money to take them out and fluff around on that. So it's just like, okay, let's try it from book 1, see what happens when doing a Kickstarter there. And then we have plans for trying to create deluxe editions for all our series as we go along. But those take a lot of work, like a stupid amount of work to do a proper deluxe edition, because you got to get all the artwork sorted out. You got to get all the designs sorted out. And I'm a bit particular about art. So I have a number of failed pieces of artwork floating around in the back end where we're just like, yeah, okay, you didn't do anything wrong as a designer. This just didn't.
Yeah. You've explained your bits of it, and it just hasn't meshed with what they've done, and they've put the hours in, they've put the work in, they've tried to make it, and you're going, it's really good, it's just not at all what I'm looking for, but you've contracted them to do this, they've done it, and you go, okay, that's great, thank you very much.
Here's your money.
Yep. I'm just gonna put that one in that file and never see the light of day.
Well, for those, that's the nice thing about Patreon. Eventually I'll release them off to Patreon, and they'll get here's another version of this character or the scene that we were trying to work on. Great. You guys can take a look at this. But it's not the one that I want in the deluxe edition. Sometimes it's just a case of, and sometimes it's just the work that they show, because the portfolio is the best work they have. Sometimes their best work is significantly better than their average work, and then you're like, I needed this. Yeah, this is what you've given me.
That's very true. Yeah, because sometimes the art that you see, you do look at it and you go, "That's wonderful. I want that, but completely different." I go, okay. Don't worry, Josh. We're all like that at times with the covers. You look at them, and sometimes you get the cover back and you go, yes, God, yes, this is wonderful. And I've got a couple of covers that will never see the light of day. The
funny thing with covers too, I've recovered some of my work. Even though I've loved covers, no one else has loved them. And so when I recovered them, I sold better because of that. And I'm like, I hate you people. Whatever. I'll take your money, but you're wrong about your choices. Yeah.
It's one of those mad things, I know, definitely. I'm very, very fortunate in that my current artist is the stuff that he turns out when I give him the details. My original artist, just sort of you discussed it with him and you just got, here's the end product. That's it. There was no discussion. There was no sort of intermediary steps. My current artist, it's a case of we discuss it. He produces preliminary sketches. We go, right, well, out of these 8, I like, 1A and 2C. Right, we'll take those 2. We'll do some more sketches from there. Are you happy with this? Yes, fantastic. Then you move on. And while a little bit more expensive, it's worth every goddamn penny, because the end result you get, you're just like, I love this art. But sorry.
Yeah, no, so I do like both of those. If the artist gets you, gets to work, like a lot of the let me get something.
Put it down.
Need some water.
Or neat rum.
Not allowed.
So vodka or rum, that'll sort your cough right out. Give you a bit of a bigger cough if you're drinking it like that, but
Yeah, I love the 1,000 League covers. As they're gorgeous. The guy, basically, I gave him a rough idea, and he came up with them, hit them right out of the park, almost without any additional input from me, really. Some minor changes. Beyond that, it works. And then, I've got some new artists who do it the same way that you are. And I do like being able to have those iterations and changing things. We're doing a series right now where I can see all those minor iterations really just making it really much better.
And it means you can add in bits and you can change them, and you say, oh, it's great. Because sometimes as well, you forget that your draft, you've given them the description of this is what's happening in the scene. And then you realize that actually, did I tell you that he's got, a cybernetic left arm? Did I tell you that he's got this? He's also got this dagger. Can we add this in here? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Because it's step by step by step. But if you go 1, 2, that it's like, can we add this in? Well, no, not really, because then I have to change all of this. You're like, okay.
Yep. That's fine.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of questions.
Let's have a look.
I don't know.
Which one do you want?
I'm just trying to think about. I mean, some of these I can answer easy, but Mike seems to be insistent on wants an answer. I don't know what I would recommend breaking into cultivation genre, because my background is very different, right? I'm writing xianxia based off my own cultural experiences, which is, based off your name. I guess it's not going to, unless you are writing off your cultural experiences. I would lean into doing what makes it uniquely you, right? What can you write based off your own experiences, based off on your own cultures, to make it different? I think it's all too. We're at a stage now where you can't bog out your generic VR, MMORPG, lit RPG, or your generic, cultivation book, progression power fantasy work, and it will do well. You need to have it somewhat unique, and whether you're using it as your culture, your characters, the setting, or even the system, it has to be different enough to set it apart. Um, the progression fantasy Reddit subreddit has some really interesting articles written by some of the authors there. Sarah Lynn is a great person to look at some of the articles she's written, especially about her discussion about power levels, understanding and deciding where your different power levels are beforehand and what that's going to scale up to, um, gives your book a depth of a depth of power, I guess, so that when people jump from one to the sections, it's a very clear jump without someone going, "Oh God, you're going all the way up here and you're punching God in the face in book one. Okay, where are you going to go in book two?" So knowing each of these levels beforehand and what it means in terms of power levels will really help structure your books. And I think that's probably one of the most common mistakes, especially with cultivation. And personally, I always feel that you should have an ending for your series. You should know where you're going to end your series. Preferably, you can, on a business side, you should probably figure out some trapdoors to end the series early, especially if you're plotting out a 20-book series. But book one doesn't really sell, or by book five it doesn't really sell very well. You kind of want to have a trapdoor to kind of drop out of that series with a decent ending at book, say, six, you know. But that's a business side question. But having a known ending means that you know that readers know that you're going to finish it. Um, I think that's works out there that, especially in the web novel side, where you can see the authors just suddenly drop a series because the money isn't coming in, the interest isn't there, they're completely burnt out. I don't know
Mhm.
why. I don't know them. But I've read so many Chinese web novels where they just kind of drop or they just stop and they leave an unfinished series, which drives me nuts.
Yeah, very much so. It's unfortunately it's the reality of it. I mean, some people have given up due to trolls. I know over the years. I mean, not so much.
Yep.
I'm sure they have in the web novel side of things as well. But I mean, in our own in published with Amazon and so on and self-published, I know there's been a few of the authors that have written some absolutely wonderful books and that have been hammered so much by trolls that just didn't decide that decided it wasn't for them. It wasn't
Yep.
written specifically for them, therefore they'd have a go at it, and that those authors have never written again. And I think that's absolutely terrible. Yes, exactly, Craig.
Yeah.
It's I think that there should be a case of, if you're going to leave reviews, if you're going to leave comments and send messages like that, I think it should have your real name attached. I think you shouldn't be allowed to hide behind it, behind making up Bob Jones 123 or whatever it is. Uh, it really
I
does get my
do.
goat.
I kind of agree about keeping.
Yeah.
I have no issues with people giving bad reviews. Frankly speaking,
no.
as far as I'm concerned, you can give me a bad review for whatever reason. You don't like my color of my shirt, whatever.
I hope the people will be more fair than that. But if they're going to give a bad review, if it's on something like, the story just fell apart, it didn't work for me because of X, Y, Z, totally fine. We accept this. But, I hate you and everything you stand for. Why?
I'm not fine if you want to do that, but I would like to know who you are. At least have some balls. But
yeah. See, I've been saying for years, what we really should have is at DragonCon, we should have an arena, and it'd just be a case of we just walk in and just go, right, I'm going to have Bob Jones, Johnny, go get yourself down here. Let's have a chat about your review in public. You want to put that out there? Let's get in the ring and see if you want to say that still. I just think it'd be great fun.
There's a part of me that really kind of wants to do that. There's a part of me that knows that my wife would kill me.
Yeah. But on the other side of that, what we'll have is a champions section. So you can see and nominate a champion if you want. Obviously, we would get in touch with some absolute lunatics. We put those in.
No, I know a lot of absolute lunatics. The problem is that I'm sitting there going, that would be really bad.
No.
But so funny. There's this 4'11" combat instructor that I know, female, probably weighs like 98 pounds. I think she should say she weighs 98 pounds. Wow, that absolutely frightens me. I mean, it's a lovely woman, incredibly good. And I would not bother her. When she turns it on, it's just... She ran a seminar about how to fight as a 98-pound woman against a 200-pound person. And she showed us all the things that you can do to someone, even who's 210 pounds. Her partner in that one was Casey, who's this monster of about that broad across.
Yeah.
BJJ black belt, SWAT captain, commander, and everything. And she was just
throwing him. Yeah.
She was, and it would be, both innocuous things that, hey, have you ever tried, sticking a finger in someone's ear in the middle of a grapple? Yeah. He won't like that.
No, they wouldn't. I always remember there's one of my instructors, our Wing Chun Kung Fu instructor, was really, really good guy, and he's a little guy. He's about 5'1", 5'2", quite chunky, a lot chunkier than the rest of us. Big beer belly, and we were training, and he's like, "Right, kick me," and you kick, and he goes, "No, kick me properly, or I'll kick you." And you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna get seriously hurt if I don't." And you kick him, and it was like kicking a steel keg. You're just like, I've hurt my foot. How have I hurt my foot kicking you? And we all went out once, and we were all having a drink in Newcastle, which is famed for being a little bit rough in places.
Yep.
And a couple of off-duty bouncers were basically being unpleasant and started a fight with him. And we were also having some drinks, having a good laugh, and we can see what's going on. We can see it's building up, and we're going, this isn't going to be good. Well, that's going to be brilliant, but it's going to be very, very, very bad. And he's just going, "Look, lads, you don't want to do this." And I go, "No, you watch yourself." And he goes, "All right, fine. Let's just go outside and we'll sort this out." And he turned around to the rest of us and went, "Right, lads, stay here. I don't want any of you coming outside. Just stay here and just watch." And we're like, "All right." And this was basically like, "There'll be questions later for you on my technique." Walked outside, walked round the corner because I didn't want to be in full view of everybody, and beat the living crap out of these three guys in about 10 seconds. Had the final guy on the floor, arm bent up behind his back, and the instructor's standing there, and he's got his thumb back around, his arms out of position, and he just goes, whoosh, slaps him across the side of the head. "Who's my bitch? Whoosh, who's my bitch?" And he just kept doing it until this guy's going, "I'm your bitch." But this guy was huge, and our instructor was a little guy, and never, ever, ever fuck with a little guy. If he's willing to fight you, you don't want to fight him. Because either they're going to really fuck you up, or you're going to look terrible when you win because he's a little guy. You don't do it. Mike, that is a horrible thought. The wet willy of death. Pin somebody. That's wrong on so many levels.
That
I think you
is
should
very
definitely put that in a book. The simple pleasures in life, honestly, fucking with people.
It is.
So, what other questions have we got here? I mean, enjoyed victory with one friggin' eye, sticking a finger into an ear. I'm writing that in my next book. Yeah, wet willy of death. Josh.
Well, I don't send my books. So what I do with my dev editing is weird. I write the book, then I publish it, and then I send it to a dev editor.
Right.
And I tell them, this book is published. There's nothing in here that will ever change what you tell me. What you need to go is tell me what the hell what I'm doing wrong for my next books. And that's what I use. They go back and they'll rip apart that book and tell me all the things I did wrong and how I could fix it. So these are structural issues in my writing that I can then use for all my books going forwards. And so I'll do that about once a year. So which means about every 3 to 5 books, I'll get a dev edit done. And I'll basically be going through these books going, right, how do I improve over the things that they told me? And once I've done all of that, I'll send another book out in the same process with generally to a different dev editor to get them to do the same thing and tell me what the hell I'm doing wrong this time, and I improve. Oh, I hope I improve. And hopefully they won't be telling me the same damn thing that has happened.
Honestly, Tao, the conversations that I have with you, I don't know if I want to be impressed or terrified, because these kind of things, it's like, who thinks of that?
I am a huge thief. I steal a lot of these things from other authors that I've talked to and pulled from. I'm pretty sure what I'm pulling that from is a kind of mishmash of what Dean Wesley Smith and recommends to some extent. So, based off what he does when he goes to critique groups, where he'd ship his short stories out before he walked into the critique group. He'd get the critiques from everyone, never rewrite his book, his shorts, but take whatever that he thought was useful into his next story. So I'm just doing it with a dev editor who's, paid.
Dude, that's amazing.
I'm a thief. I take things from, better and smarter people.
No, it's pretty much the definition. So yeah.
It's
just, I'm just stunned by this. I know that your Patreon, you have a lot of business advice and stuff in there, don't you?
Yep. About once a week, I try to post something.
And that is something I would massively recommend to new authors, is the business side of things. Writing your story is only half the battle. It's a really important half the battle. It genuinely is. You can't do anything else without it. But writing your story and then actually putting it together with the business side, because like it or not, as much as we love to write and that's what we're here for, there is a business side to it. You have to look at the business side of things. And Tao's advice is wonderful. So if you're looking for that kind of advice, I would definitely have a read of some of Tao's advice on Patreon. It's amazing. I know that I've been in some of the groups that you're in when you've talked about some of this stuff, and it's like, Jesus.
I should point out as well, everything I write about the business side is always free. Will be free. The Patreon is 2 to 3 weeks ahead of what gets posted, but everything gets posted in my personal website, mylifemytao.com, for free. So if you want to read it, you can go there and read it for free. It doesn't bother me. I don't make money. I don't make a lot of money off writers. I don't really want to make a lot of money off writers. It doesn't. I do well writing for readers, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to brand myself as a author coach or whatever. So information stream, pretty much. I have it.
You're a good man.
I gateway some of it just because as a little gremlin part of me that likes getting money. It's $2.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a $2 investment in serious information. It's just saying thank you, I think, to you for your advice, for your recommendation. I think that's the very least we can do. So definitely well earned. So let's have a quick look. Have we got any more questions there?
Re-editing pattern. Just keep writing. Don't look back. Actually, there's a few methods, right? Really, that I know of. Dean Wesley Smith talks about cycle editing. So he does. He'll write until he's tired and he just kind of runs out of inspiration. He'll stop. He'll go read backwards to where he started and edit everything that he wrote then, and then just keep moving on. And once he's finished on that editing session, he generally has enough impetus and brain power and inspiration to keep writing. And then he writes another 1,000 words or 1,500, and he stops it and he goes back and does it again. So that's cycle editing as an option. For myself, I just leave notes. I leave a lot of notes. If I need to do foreshadowing or something, I'll leave a comment note in my Word document. But I very rarely go backwards and edit it immediately in, unless I know it's like, oh, I know exactly where I need to put this, and it's a sentence because I need to foreshadow it right there. And then I'll go back in. But that's it. I'll literally just drop that one sentence and move on. I will not... I won't go back
the issue.
To complete re-edit. I think one of the things is once you've started writing a lot, at least for me, because I'm a prancer, I don't know my themes. I don't know my mood. I don't know what I'm really writing about in many ways until I'm like 80, 90% of the book in. And I'm like, that's what I'm writing about. And at that point, I might as well finish the book and then go back and properly do a re-edit.
Yeah.
You're just laughing because it sounds like you do that too, eh?
Yeah, it's literally because I can't stop. I think what you're asking there is, when you're saying about the editing side, is I write from start to finish. That's it. I have a separate Word document myself. I hadn't thought about the comment side of things, which is actually a really good point. Not for any reason. It's really obvious. That just hadn't occurred to me. I have a second document which I have sort of plot points in that I go all the way through. I write the first book all the way to the very end. Boom, that's it. It's done. Then I pull up the plot points, and then I just go from the start of this book. I read through, adjusting things because when you're typing fast, from and form, for example, are the same goddamn word, I swear. But it does kind of change the meaning of things. But you go through and you're like, I'll fix that one, I'll change that one, I'll change the way that sentence works. And I do that editing pass over sort of a week. And I add in those plot points, and then I never look at it again until it's back from the editing cycles. If you keep going round and round and round, you'll never finish a book. If you stop yourself, I think it was Luke Chumlenko that when I was first talking to him, when I was first writing, and he said that the time to release your book is when you can't stand the fucker anymore. If you keep editing it, you will never ever release a book. And if you think, because logically, let's say it's 100,000 words as your book, word 1 is never going to be as good as word 100,000, because when you've hit 100,000 words on, you have improved at your craft, unless you've really fucked up. You have improved. And so if you go back to word 1, you might have only improved by, let's say, lit RPG terms, you've only gained 1 level, but suddenly you're a little bit better at it. And if you go back to word 1, you will tweak it. And let's keep going all the way through just to fix these things until you get to word 100,000 again. Now, you might be a level 3 author or a level 5 author or 50 or whatever. But if you keep doing this, you will keep polishing the same turd, and it will never get fucking perfect. because it's impossible to reach perfection. So when you get to the point you can't stand that document anymore, yeet it the fuck out the window and send it to a proper editor and just go, right, there you go.
And if you find that, you're like me to a bit where I get really bored about writing the same damn thing all the time. Just give yourself a maximum number. Like, I'm going to only edit it once or twice, and that's it. I'm done. I'm moving on. I have to. You will learn more, right, about writing books by writing more books than you will be by writing the same book over and over again. Sanderson again talks about this actually here, where there's a small subset of authors who do really, really well at rewriting the same book. Rothfuss is one of them. He has amazing prose. Like, you look at the name of the wind, and amazing prose. Story structure, on the other hand, is not something that he's very good at because he's only ever written one book. Well, two books now. And so his ability to understand story structure is based off those two books, really. Whereas most writers get better by writing multiple books. And that's because multiple books allows you to understand multiple story structures and how plots and characters and arcs fit together as you write different scenarios. Or, unless you're writing the same story again and again and again, like Eddings.
Yeah. That really was as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
I liked his books for the first, 3 trilogies, but, after that, it was just kind of...
Yeah, what? Yeah. Yeah, I can't deny that one.
I read 3 trilogies, probably more than that. Probably like 4 to 5 trilogies of his, but really they were the same story.
Yeah.
And the same characters too.
Yes, Jesus, yes. But growing up, I mean, I read them growing up, so it's like, you're like, oh, these are wonderful. And you read them again and again and again and again. And then you start going, this is familiar. And then it's just because I've read this book a few times, and you go, well, I've just read this new series. This is, oh, right. Yeah.
That's when you decide it's time to move on.
Yeah. I've still got them somewhere.
I don't.
No.
As I said, I moved a lot, so I've trimmed out my books so much. Also, I just...
Yeah, I have trimmed mine down. I'm gonna ask, this is gonna be, what the hell's it called? Mission Earth. Have you ever read Mission Earth by L. Ron Hubbard? It was in the 80s.
I haven't.
It's a really weird series. I mean, some of it is terrible. It's definitely not appropriate to modern culture at all. It's highly inappropriate in a lot of ways. And don't get me started on his batshit theories and Scientology and all the rest of it. None of that. I do not approve of any of that. But the Mission Earth series, you read them and they're really fun. They're really good books. The first one, you meet these characters, and when you start to flip it around and see it from the other side, because it's the two main characters, it's like you're seeing it from their point of views, and it's wonderful to see. It's just a really good series. I just when we were talking about the books there, I just looked over and saw I've still got that box set over there. And I was just like, I'm gonna have to read that again one of these days. There's a lot of
I have a lot
madness.
of books I want to reread, and then a lot of books I want to read for the first time. And yeah,
that's Battlefield Earth. Yeah, they killed that film. The book was good. The film was terrible. But this is a full series that was totally separate. Okay. But yeah, it was a damn good book, Battlefield Earth.
I tried reading that one, and I think I couldn't make my way through it. I don't know why, though.
There are times that it's a slog.
It was dense from what I remember.
Yeah. Are you a fan of The Wheel of Time?
Mostly.
Yes. Wheel of Time. The books are obviously about yay big, And from the beginning, it's very, very slow and it's a bit of a slog, and it picks up speed and picks up speed and picks up speed. And as you get to the end of the book, it's brilliant. And there's so much going on, and it's like, oh, this is brilliant. You get to the end, and then you get the next book out, and it's so slow to build up again.
It's a repetition.
Yeah,
He
brilliant series.
repeated the information so much, and it wasn't so bad in the first few books. But then I've heard varying stories of why it became like that, including the fact that his publishers basically said, "You need to extend the story out. You need to keep pushing out books on this." So his story his books got fat, and his story kept on getting bigger because they kept pushing him to do that. That's what I've heard. And
I know. Yeah, we'll never know. But the show wasn't great. It wasn't bad though. I mean, it was far better than it could have been. They just mixed and matched with a lot of details, I found.
Yeah, I didn't actually finish watching it. I think I watched like 2 episodes of it and then we stopped, which kind of tells you how engaged we got with it, which is bad because I didn't like Matt, which really annoyed me, and that was like, he's my favorite character.
Yes, he's mine as well. They could have done so much better, and the guy quit before the end of the season as well. He said, "I'm not doing the second one." It's like, well, really, you should have had some kind of cast iron contract that if you're doing this, he's in. That's fine, Mike. It's okay, mate. Don't worry. We can accept that you're wrong. No, but it's one of those that everybody's got different favorites. That I watch a series with my wife that when you can't find anything you want to watch on TV and you just go, let's put that on. Called Elementary, and it's with Lucy Liu and Johnny Lee Miller as the two main characters as Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and it is absolutely bloody brilliant. So that's personally. I mean, is there anything else that sort of anybody wants to? Any other questions or anything that anybody else wants to ask?
I think we have a few questions in here. I'll see if I can go through them and answer them quickly because my son's getting grumpy.
You're having kids.
When is the best time to break a world rule? My answer would be never. If it's a rule, it's a rule. Try to figure it out a different way to go and either build tension or something else. Because if your rules in the world are basically promises to your readers, and if when you break those rules, you're also breaking a promise to the readers. So either set it up so that it's possible to break a rule and it's part of the expectation, or just don't. Otherwise, you'll have a David Weber story where vampires come in at the end and win the world, because I don't know. I don't understand that story at all. It was, if you've read that one, you know what I mean. If you don't. It's okay. Don't look it up. It's a weird book.
What else have we got? We've got one from Kyle there as well. In your writing career, who are you the most grateful for, and what do they do to be in that spot for you?
Probably Kristen Catherine Rouge. She wrote, she's been writing a business blog, which I kind of structured my own of since about 2011, 2009, I think actually she started writing that. And if you don't know who she is, she's a mid-list New York Times bestselling author, but mid-list basically. In the sense that she's never had anything that's taken off like George R. Martin, but she's been writing since the 1980s. So she started writing his business blog about 2009, I think, roughly around then, about the business of publishing, and she basically has details about how the industry has changed, what has changed, what's coming up, what she thinks about it, and just the business of publishing. And she wrote that and has been writing that, and she still writes that. Now, I don't agree with her on certain things like marketing. I think she's a little old school, and I think she's a little. She has a lot of legacy fans from her time as trad pop. So I think some of the things that she talks about, I don't think would work if you didn't have that backing. In my view, and some of the things that she thinks. Anyway, her marketing advice basically, it's kind of dodgy, but her understanding of the industry, about changing trends, about the business side, about negotiations, about contracts, about all of that, is amazing. And it's something I recommend most people read. And a lot of things that I know I picked up from reading her posts and her husband's blog, which isn't as good, frankly speaking. Um, but yeah, I think it because of her. It literally because of her. I knew about self-publishing, and because of that, I decided to self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
So without her blog, I wouldn't be here.
Which would be an absolute fucking shame for the world, considering the wonders of System Apocalypse. But I'm definitely glad to hear then.
Yeah.
I know that obviously you've got your little ones there. He's wanting to go to bed. He's getting a bit grumpy there. So should we have one more question? Then should we call it?
Yeah, sure. What should we pick?
You pick, sir. You pick.
Mostly from Josh, I guess. He's got 3. I guess practical advice, because advice time between destinations, that's really about that really depends on the scenes that you have got in between. It's a pacing question. Realistically, it's a pacing question. What do you have to do in between that is important for the book? Now, you might notice that my books are much slimmer than a lot of other people's books in general. And also, it depends on the format that you're writing in, which is a weird thing. But if you're writing an actual normal novel, it's a pacing question. If the scene in between has a point? What's the point of that scene? Why are you writing that scene? And how are you going to do that scene to make it interesting? Because if that scene has no point to it, it doesn't belong there. So take it out and jump forward. If you are if you're switching characters to go and understand, a different viewpoint, so that people understand, the different characters by seeing that, that's great, but know why you're having that scene is the basic answer. That being said, this is for a typical novel, what they're writing. One thing I'm realizing when I'm writing a serial, which is what Climbing the Ranks is serials by their nature almost require a day-to-day kind of thing. There's much less chance for you to time skip, which makes them chunkier. But that's just the nature of it.
It's a very good point. Obviously, Tao, we could talk forever. We could talk for ages with this kind of stuff. So I'm very conscious. It's like 10:30 at night for you there. You've got your little ones wanting to go to bed. It's mid-afternoon for me here. It's 9 a.m. for everybody in America, or whatever time it is. God alone knows what time it is in Australia. Just one thing before we let you go is the whole point of this group, essentially the Legion, is twofold. It's to talk to authors and to find out what's going on in your lives, to see if there's anything you want to share with us, which you've shared us with the Kickstarter. So if Geneva could chuck that Kickstarter back up for us again, because I do like the look of that one, and I'm definitely going to be getting me some of that. But the other thing as well is to draw attention to new authors who have worked their butt off but have released wonderful books, some of these people. But if you release a book at the same time as, say, Matt Dinnerman, Dungeon Crawler Carls, you are gonna get swamped, no matter who you are, because that's bloody gold. And you could be, your first book comes out, that comes out on top of it, you just lost. So is there anybody that you've read that you think you'd like to share a bit about? You'd like to just tell us about something that you think's been missed? That, I mean, feel free to tell us about one of your guys if you want, or anybody you want to talk.
That's a little much. I, I'm gonna look at some. I think more of the recent ones. Gosh, there's some really. It's weird because I'm been mostly reading a lot of trad pub recently. Not as much. Oh, you know who? Um, I don't know. I mean, they've done really well. The Mati Ocha ones have been really. I really enjoyed those, but they've done pretty well. Um, Dinosaur Dungeon is probably Alex Raisman. I think
Yes.
a lot more people should be reading that because, god damn, dinosaurs as a dungeon. They know they're dinosaurs. They have little appendixes about dinosaur information right at the end, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Definitely.
I haven't heard it, and I don't hear their name very much mentioned at all when people are asking about stuff. A lot of people ask for Dungeon Core, admittedly, but Dinosaur Dungeon is really a lot of fun to read. So I don't get it.
A very, very good one there. I've seen the pictures for that. It's on my list, the Primeval Apocalypse. Thank you, mate. It is in my to-be read list. I haven't read it yet. I'm definitely interested in that, so that will definitely do me because I'm gonna have some of that. I'm away with the wife and kids and some of the family next week for the full week. We're
Alright.
at a sort of a place in the forest, so I'm gonna
Oh,
download a load of books because I'll go crazy otherwise. But thank you very much for joining us, Tao. Thank you everybody that's commented, that's shouted in. It's lovely to have you all here, and we'll let Tao go and catch up next time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go.